Vale knew the curse had reached the Alpha King's heart before any of the royal healers did. Adrian lay rigid on the infirmary table, one hand clenched around the wooden edge hard enough to crack it. Black veins spread beneath the skin of his chest, pulsing with the last light of the setting moon. Chief Healer Elias Crow ordered another dose of silverleaf, even though the first two had done nothing. Mara stood at the herb table with crushed moonroot beneath her fingernails, watching the dark lines. She had watched them through 4 attacks over 6 months. She had recorded when they appeared, how they moved, and which medicines changed their direction. Tonight the pattern was different. The curse was no longer spreading outward. It was closing around his heart. "Stop," Mara said. Elias did not even turn. "Get her out." Adrian's body jerked. A black line climbed toward his throat. Mara crossed the room. Elias caught her wrist before she reached the table. "You are an herb assistant. You do not touch the king. He has less than a minute. You cannot know that." Mara looked at Adrian. His eyes opened for one brief moment. Gold, unfocused but aware. "Ido." She tore her hand free, opened a locked drawer beneath the herb table, and removed a thin silver medical ring. Elias went pale. That frightened her more than his anger. "Where did you get that?" he asked. Mara dipped the ring into a cup of concentrated moonroot and pressed one side against the dark mark above Adrian's heart. She wrapped her own hand around the other. The metal turned painfully cold. Adrian forced his eyes open. "Mara." It was the first time he had ever spoken her name. "Stay still," she whispered. "What are you doing?" "Buying you time." The curse moved. Narrow black threads pulled away from Adrian's chest and raced toward the silver. Pain struck Mara's palm so violently that her knees nearly gave way. Elias shouted for the guards. Adrian tried to rise, but his body would not obey him. The first dark line crossed the ring and entered Mara's hand. Then another. She held on. The veins disappeared from Adrian's chest and climbed her wrist instead. "Stop," Adrian rasped. Mara kept her grip until the last black thread left him. The moment it crossed into her body, Adrian dragged in a full breath. Mara stumbled backward. Her knees struck the stone floor. She looked at her arm. The curse had already reached her elbow. The transfer had worked. The cure had not. She had given Adrian his life and given herself less than a day. The room tilted. Adrian called her name again, but darkness took her before she could answer. When Adrian woke several hours later, dawn had begun to brighten the high infirmary windows. His pulse was steady. His chest was clear. The curse was gone. Mara's bed in the recovery room was empty. Her cloak, medicine bag, and boots were missing. So was one broken half of the silver ring. On the small table beside the bed lay a strip of bandage stained dark with blood. Adrian picked it up. Behind him, Elias said, "She has taken a royal curse into an Omega body. We do not know what it may become inside her." Adrian turned. "You told me the curse could not be transferred." Elias hesitated. "I told you there was no safe transfer." Adrian's hand closed around the bloody bandage. "That is not the same thing. What she did was reckless. What she did saved me." Elias drew a slow breath. "If the curse becomes unstable, every settlement she enters could be at risk. We need to find her immediately." Adrian looked once more at the empty bed. "Find her." Elias nodded. "And if she resists?" Adrian met his eyes. "You bring her back alive." Elias did not answer quickly enough. Adrian stepped toward him. "Alive." This time Elias bowed. Mara avoided the northern road because Elias would expect her to take it. She followed an old shepherd trail through the foothills, stopping each time heat surged beneath her skin. She counted the seconds, wrote them in a small notebook, then kept moving. By mid-morning, the black veins had climbed past her shoulder. Moonroot slowed them, but each dose worked for less time than the one before. She had known that might happen. Years earlier, before entering the Royal Infirmary, Mara had trained under an old country healer named Ruth Calder. Ruth had never given her secret magic or forbidden powers. She had taught her to observe, measure before guessing, compare before believing tradition. The silver ring technique had come from fragments in Ruth's notes, but Mara had spent months testing how cursed objects reacted to silver, moonroot, and black moonstone. She had never used the method on a living person until Adrian began dying in front of her. She had also known the transfer could kill the recipient. That was why she had left before dawn. Not because she feared Adrian, because she feared being locked inside the infirmary while Elias waited for the curse to finish what it had started. Hoofbeats reached her shortly after noon. Mara stepped off the trail, but the riders had already split around the ridge. At the far end of a narrow wooden bridge, Adrian dismounted. 2 guards remained behind him. He wore no crown, only a dark traveling coat. "Come back," he said. Mara almost smiled at the predictability of the command. No, Adrian's expression changed. "You are carrying something that nearly killed me. Which is why I cannot return to the palace. The royal infirmary has the best healers in the kingdom." A wave of pain struck Mara beneath the collarbone. She gripped the bridge rail until it passed. Adrian took 1 step forward then stopped. "What was that?" "The curse moving." "Then you need help." "I need the right help. You took it into your body without telling me. You were dying. That was not your decision to make." Mara looked straight at him. "And what happens to my body now is not yours to command." The guards behind Adrian suddenly became very interested in the mountains. Adrian said nothing for several seconds. Mara continued. "Elias is wrong about what the curse is. He thinks it follows royal blood. It does not." "How can you know?" "Because every time you came near Black Moonstone, the veins changed direction. I documented it. I never saw a report." "No." Elias rejected it. Something small but important changed in Adrian's face. Not belief. Attention. "Where are you going?" he asked. Mara considered lying, but another pulse burned down her arm. There was no time for games. "An old healer's station north of here. I left something there. Something that can cure you. Something that might tell me what the curse is actually following." Adrian turned to his guards. "Return to the palace. Tell the captain I am continuing north." Mara stared at him. "I did not invite you." "No. You have been very clear about that." He handed his reins to one of the men. "But if my chief healer suppressed evidence about the thing that has nearly killed me 4 times, I intend to see that evidence myself." Mara studied him. "If you come, you follow my route." "Agreed. If I tell you the curse is surging, you do not grab me unless I ask." Adrian hesitated only a moment. "Agreed." Mara turned toward the northern trail. Behind her, she heard him follow on foot. For the first time, the Alpha King was walking where an Omega had told him to. The abandoned healer's station still smelled faintly of dried herbs and old smoke. Mara crossed the single stone room and lifted a loose floorboard near the hearth. From beneath it, she removed a cloth bundle. Inside lay a piece of black moonstone no larger than a coin. Adrian recognized it immediately. "That came from my armor. After the first attack. You kept it." The armorers threw the damaged section away. Mara placed the stone on the table and held her cursed arm near it. First nothing happened. Then the black veins beneath her skin turned toward the stone. Adrian leaned closer. Mara moved her arm away. The veins relaxed. She brought it near again. They pulled toward it. Adrian's expression hardened. "Elias said the curse was attached to my bloodline. The evidence never supported that." Mara opened her notebook to several pages covered with dates and short observations. First attack. The veins intensified when you wore the ceremonial breastplate. Second attack. Same reaction near moonstone powder in the council brazier. Third attack, I tried to confirm it. Elias removed me from the treatment room. Adrian read the pages in silence. "You submitted this?" 3 times. He closed the notebook. "I gave Elias complete authority over royal medical reports." "I know. So I made it possible for him to ignore this." Mara folded her arms. "You made it possible for rank to decide which evidence mattered." Adrian looked at her. "That is harsher. It is also more accurate." She expected him to argue. Instead, he placed the notebook back on the table. "You are right." Mara did not know what to do with the answer. "That does not fix it." "No. It does not make me trust you." "No." A curse surge hit before she could say more. Mara bent over the table, breathing through the pain. Adrian moved toward her, then stopped with his hand half raised. What do you need? He asked. The question startled her more than the pain. Moonroot. Small pouch. Left side of the bag. He found it and placed it beside her rather than trying to administer it himself. Mara mixed the powder with water and drank. The burning gradually eased. Adrian watched the black veins slow. How much moonroot is left? Enough to reach the border shrine. And after that? Mara did not answer. He understood. A horn sounded outside. One of Adrian's guards, who had followed at a distance despite his order, appeared at the doorway. Royal riders in the valley. At least 20. Mara wrapped the moonstone and placed it in her medicine bag. Elias. Adrian's mouth tightened. There is an older trail over the ridge, Mara said. It leads to a healing shrine near the border. You know what is there? Old treatment carvings. Maybe nothing useful. Maybe. Medicine is full of maybe. Adrian almost smiled. I am beginning to understand why Elias dislikes you.
Ma lifted her bag.
No. He dislikes uncertainty. Adrian opened the door for her. And you do not? Mara stepped outside. I dislike pretending uncertainty is the same thing as ignorance. Elias caught them near sunset at a narrow mountain pass. He had brought royal guards, 2 infirmary healers, and an emergency order bearing Adrian's own seal. Elias did not raise a weapon. He simply held up the document. Your Majesty, step away from her. Adrian stood beside Mara. I ordered her brought back alive. And she remains alive. For now. Elias's gaze moved to the dark veins above Mara's collar. The curse is no longer contained in its royal host. Under the authority you gave me, that makes her a public medical threat. Mara felt Adrian go still. Beside her. You knew transfer was possible, she said. Elias looked at her. Possible does not mean survivable. You recognized the silver ring. Of course I recognized it. Adrian's voice hardened. Then why did you tell me transfer was impossible? Because every documented version risks killing the recipient. That was information I had a right to know. Elias looked at him with something close to frustration. A king does not have the luxury of behaving like an ordinary patient. And an Omega does not stop being a person because the king is sick. Elias's face tightened. You think this is about contempt for Omegas? He turned to Mara. I was 19 when the Alpha of Vale died in 3 days. His council split before his body was cold. 2 packs went to war. Supply roads closed. I spent the next winter watching children die from infections we could have treated if medicine had reached them. His voice remained controlled, but the memory beneath it was not. 1 ruler died. Thousands paid for it. Mara finally understood the shape of his fear. Elias believed some lives carried more consequences than others. From there everything else followed. So you decided a king's survival mattered more than anyone's right to choose, she said. I decided stability matters. Even if someone else has to die without being told there was another option. Elias looked at Adrian. If your life and hers had been placed equally on a scale last night, every council in this kingdom would have chosen yours. Adrian said quietly. That does not mean you had the right to make the choice for both of us. Elias lifted the sealed order. You gave me that right. The silence that followed was different. Adrian stared at his own seal. Mara watched the realization settle over him. Elias had not stolen his authority. Adrian had handed it to him. You are correct, Adrian said. Elias seemed relieved too soon. Adrian removed the royal ring from his hand. Which means I can take it back. Elias's face changed. Adrian handed the ring to the guard captain. Record this. Effective immediately. Chief Healer Elias Crow no longer has unilateral authority over royal medical decisions. Your Majesty, you may advise. You may treat. You may not decide what information a patient is allowed to know, because you fear what choice he might make. Elias stared at him. You are placing the crown in the hands of an unranked Omega with an unproven theory. Adrian looked at Mara. No. I am allowing her to follow evidence you refuse to investigate. Then he turned to her. Do you still want to continue north? Mara had expected him to order her forward or order her back. Instead he waited. Yes, she said. Adrian stepped aside, clearing the trail. Elias lowered the emergency order. She may not survive the night. Mara tightened the strap of her medicine bag. Then standing here will not improve my chances. She walked past him. Adrian followed. After several seconds, so did Elias. The border shrine was smaller than Adrian expected, and more useful than Mara dared hope. Its walls were covered with treatment symbols carved by healers long before the modern infirmary existed. No prayers. No prophecy. Instructions. Mara cleaned the central carving with water. A silver circle surrounded 2 hands, with a dark stone carved between them. 7 short marks curved around the outside. Mara placed her piece of moonstone in the stone basin beneath the carving. The curse in her arm pulled toward it immediately. Elias stepped closer despite himself. Lunar marks, he said, looking at the 7 lines. Mara opened Ruth's notebook and found the same symbol beside an old observation about treatment timing. The curse does not move continuously, she said. It surges with the lunar pulse. Adrian looked from the carving to the veins in her arm. Then the transfer was never meant to remove it. Mara felt the answer before she spoke it. No. The transfer is only a bridge. Elias's expression confirmed it. Adrian saw that too. You knew. Elias shook his head. I knew fragments. The original host must willingly receive part of the curse during severing. The rest can be drawn into moonstone. And you hid that from me. Because kings have died trying it. Adrian's jaw tightened. Mara barely heard them. A different truth had struck her. She had come north hoping the curse could be removed from her without returning to Adrian. Could not. The cure required him. Adrian looked at her. You knew you might die when you left the palace. Mara said nothing. Mara. She stared at the black stone. I knew there was a chance. How large a chance? Large enough. And you left anyway. You were alive. Adrian's voice lowered. That was enough for you? Mara finally looked at him. It had to be. Something broke through his anger then. Not royal outrage. Hurt. You did not run because you feared arrest. That was part of it. You left because if there was no cure, you intended to die somewhere far enough away that no one could put the curse back into me. Mara could have lied. She did not. Yes. Adrian looked as if she had struck him. Elias turned away. Mara continued because there was no gentle version. If I stayed at the palace, Elias would have contained me. If the curse returned to you, everything I did would have been pointless. So you decided your life was the acceptable loss. I decided one of us had to survive. And you never considered that I might choose differently. Mara's temper rose. You were unconscious. I am awake now. And now you know. Adrian stepped closer, but he did not touch her. Then hear me now. I will not accept a cure that requires you to disappear so I can pretend the cause did not exist. Mara's throat tightened. Do not turn gratitude into affection. I am not. You barely knew I existed yesterday. That is true. Then do not stand there and tell me my life suddenly matters because I saved yours. Adrian held her gaze. It did not suddenly become valuable when I noticed it. Mara went still. He continued. My failure was not giving you worth too late. My failure was not seeing what was already there. No one had ever said it that way. Not Ruth. Not another healer. Not anyone at the palace. Mara looked down before the words could undo more of her defenses than she wanted. Adrian glanced toward the carving. Tell me what the severing requires. You could die. I understand. No. You understand the sentence. Not the experience. Adrian nodded slowly. Then explain it to me. Mara looked at him. He did not command. He waited. She sat beside the basin and told him what the curse had felt like since dawn. How it moved. How Moonroot slowed it. How close it had come to her heart. Adrian listened without interrupting. By the time she finished, the relationship between them had changed again. Not into love. Into something more useful for what came next. Understanding. The first strong lunar pulse would arrive before midnight. Mara measured the remaining moonroot. There was enough for one serious attempt. Elias wanted them to return to the palace, but even he no longer pretended the infirmary had a better answer. The old method killed patients because healers lost control of the transfer rate, he said. Mara looked at the carved hands on the wall. Then we do not transfer it all at once. She placed the silver ring in the center basin. Moonroot slows the host. Silver moves the curse. Moonstone pulls it away. The lunar pulse tells us when it will move. For rules. That was enough. Adrian washed his hands in the moonroot mixture. What do you need from me? You only take the curse when I tell you. If I say release the ring, release it. Agreed. If you feel pressure in your chest, tell me immediately. Do not hide it because you think being king means enduring silently. Adrian gave her a dry look. That sounded personal. It was. Elias checked both their pulses. And if she loses consciousness? Adrian looked at Mara rather than answering for her. Mara noticed. End the transfer. Do not push the curse back into me. Stabilize both of us and wait. Elias frowned. Waiting could make the situation worse. It could. But that is my decision. Elias glanced at Adrian. The old version of Adrian might have settled the matter with an order. Instead he said, You heard her. Elias stepped away from the basin. He did not agree, but he obeyed. Mara stood and briefly lost her balance. Adrian moved to help her, then stopped. May I? He asked. It was such a small thing that no one else in the shrine seemed to notice. Mara did. Yes. He offered his arm. She took it. His grip was steady, nothing more. As they approached the basin, Adrian said quietly, You do not have to prove anything by surviving this. Mara looked at him. That is an unusual thing to say before a dangerous medical procedure. I am learning. Slowly. You are not an easy teacher. You were not an easy patient. For the first time that night, Mara smiled. Then moonlight touched the first mark on the wall, and the moment passed. Elias looked toward the roof. The pulse is beginning. Mara released Adrian's arm and took her position. Fear was still there. But she was no longer alone inside it. The first transfer worked. When the lunar mark brightened, Mara told Adrian to close his hand around the silver ring. A narrow thread of darkness moved from her palm into his wrist. His face tightened, but he stayed still. Stone, Mara said. Adrian moved his hand toward the black moonstone. The curse bent toward it and disappeared beneath its surface. Mara waited. Adrian's chest remained clear. The black lines on her arm retreated slightly. Hope entered the shrine for the first time. Elias checked Adrian's pulse. Stable. Mara let herself breathe. Then we know the method works. The next transfer began stronger. That was when fear overcame Elias. The moonstone darkened faster than he expected. He stepped toward the basin. Stop. The stone is taking too much. Not yet, Mara said. It is saturating. Wait for the pulse. Elias reached for the moonstone to move it. The instant his fingers disturbed its position, the curse snapped back toward Mara. Black veins raced across her shoulder and throat. She screamed and fell against the stone table. Adrian caught the edge of the ring but did not break contact. Mara. Elias tried to reach her. She forced out one word. Stone. Adrian looked at Elias. Put it back. She is crashing. Put it back. Elias returned the moonstone to the groove. The curse slowed, but it had already reached dangerously close to Mara's heart. Elias went pale. End it. Now. Mara struggled to breathe. Her vision blurred. Adrian leaned toward her. Tell me what you see. The question reached through the pain. Not what should we do. Not what does the old method say. What do you see? Mara forced herself to look. The moonstone. The silver ring. The moving veins. The bands of lunar light on the wall. The stone darkened just before each pulse. The curse hesitated at the same instant. Mara suddenly understood why the old healers had carved the stone at an angle. The moonstone is strongest at the peak of the pulse, she whispered. Elias shook his head. That does not give us enough time. It gives us one chance. Mara rotated the stone slightly toward the moonlight. Elias stared at her. That angle is not in the written method. The written method is why they lost control. She looked at Adrian. Next pulse I send you a larger amount. When the stone goes completely dark, move your hand toward it. How much larger? I cannot know. Elias stepped forward. Then no. Adrian did not look at him. If we stop? He asked Mara. She touched the black line near her collarbone. It reaches my heart. Adrian opened his hand against the ring. Then we continue. Mara studied his face. You understand that it could reach yours instead? Yes. I cannot promise this works. I am not asking for a promise. The next band of moonlight crossed the wall. The moonstone darkened. Mara felt the curse rise. Now. She opened the pathway. Darkness rushed through the ring into Adrian's arm. He gasped but held steady. Elias started toward them, then stopped himself. The veins approached Adrian's chest. The moonstone turned nearly black. Move. Adrian brought his hand closer. The curse bent sharply away from his heart and poured into the stone. A crack split across its surface. Silence filled the shrine. Adrian's chest cleared. Mara looked at her arm. Most of the black lines were gone, but one deep strand remained. The final part. Elias stared at the cracked stone. It cannot hold another full transfer. Mara looked at the fracture, then at the final lunar mark. It does not need to hold it. Adrian understood. It needs to break. Mara nodded. If the stone is the anchor, breaking it while the curse is divided may leave nothing for the curse to return to. Elias shook his head. That is a theory. Mara met his eyes. Yes. He looked at Adrian, expecting the king to take control. Adrian only asked Mara, "What do you need me to do?" That was the final proof of his change. Mara positioned the ring between them. Follow my count. Do not move early. Do not hold longer than I say. I trust you. Moonlight reached the last mark. The remaining curse surged. Mara waited until the stone darkened. 1. Adrian closed his hand. 2. The black strand crossed the silver. Hold. It moved into Adrian's wrist. His breath caught. Mara watched the stone. The fracture widened. 3. Stone. Adrian moved. The curse bent toward the moonstone. For one terrible second, black veins appeared across both their bodies at once. Elias took a step forward then stopped. Mara saw the stone begin to split. She could not know with certainty what would happen next. But every observation led to the same conclusion. Release. Adrian obeyed. Mara twisted the moonstone toward the final band of light. The stone cracked in two. Both halves dropped into the basin. The black lines vanished from Adrian's chest. Then from Mara's arm. No new line appeared. No second surge followed. Adrian sank to one knee. Mara caught herself against the table. Elias reached them and checked Adrian's pulse, then hers. His expression changed. Steady. Mara looked at her bare wrist. Adrian pulled open the collar of his shirt. His chest was clear. They waited through one breath. Then another. Then the interval when the next pulse should have come. Nothing happened. For the first time since the curse had entered Adrian's body months earlier, there was nowhere left for it to return. 3 weeks later, Elias Crow stood before the Royal Medical Council without his chief healer insignia. He was not dragged away as a monster, because Mara refused to turn a complicated failure into a simple lie. Elias had hidden medical knowledge, suppressed evidence, and issued a lethal containment order without proof that Mara endangered others. Those choices would be judged. His fear of another Vale explained them, did not excuse them. Adrian changed the infirmary before the hearing was finished. Rank could no longer block an observation from review. Patients had to be informed of known treatment risks whenever they were capable of choosing. Those rules applied to the king as well. When Adrian offered Mara the title of royal healer, she refused it. I have not completed the formal examinations, she said. You saved my life twice. That is not an examination. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. You are extraordinarily difficult. I am correct. That makes it worse. Mara entered the healer program instead. She did not need a crown, a mate claim, or a royal decree to prove that she had always possessed ability. She needed the doors that had been closed to stop being locked. Adrian visited the infirmary more often after that. At first he claimed it was because of medical reforms. Mara stopped pretending to believe him after the fourth unnecessary visit. Their conversations became easier, though never effortless. They still disagreed. Adrian still had instincts shaped by years of command. Mara still expected authority to become control if she stopped watching it. But now he asked before deciding for her, and she spoke before resentment became silence. One morning Mara stood alone at a washing table cleaning the silver medical ring. The metal had been repaired, though a dark mark remained where the curse had once crossed it. Adrian entered without an escort. "You are early," Mara said. "Council ended early."
Impossible.
"I may have escaped." Mara smiled and returned to the ring. Adrian came to stand across from her. Sunlight touched the silver between them. It was the same ring Mara had used when she took his moon curse into her own body. The same ring he had held when he finally trusted her enough not to take control. Adrian looked at her hand resting beside it. Months earlier, he would have reached across the table without thinking. This time he stopped. He opened his palm between them. "May I?" Mara looked at his hand, then at the darkened silver ring. No curse forced her. No title required her. No debt bound her. She placed her hand in his. The silver ring remained between them, clean at last.